man once. Not directly. But my case signed his death warrant, and I didn't even know it until it was too late. My name is Sloane Reeves, and this is the story of how I discovered I was working for the devil himself, and how I became the only person he ever truly feared. Let me start 3 years before the kiss. Before Dominic Caruso. Before I understood what real power looked like. I was 26, working as a crisis management consultant for politicians and celebrities. My job was to make scandals disappear. Cheating husbands. I'd spin it. Leaked videos. I'd bury them. DUIs, assault charges, financial fraud. If you had money and a problem, I was your solution. I was good at my job because I understood something fundamental about human nature. Everyone has secrets, and everyone will pay to keep them hidden. My younger sister Emma was my whole world. She was 19, studying art history at the School of the Art Institute of Chicago, and completely innocent compared to me. Our parents had been missionaries who died in a humanitarian crisis overseas when I was 21. They'd been building wells in a war-torn region when their convoy was attacked. Emma had been 16, suddenly orphaned, and I'd been thrust into the role of guardian when I was barely an adult myself. I'd raised Emma through her teenage years while building my career from nothing. Worked 3 jobs while putting her through private school. Learned to be hard because the world didn't care that we were alone. I'd do anything to protect her. Anything. That's what made me vulnerable. 3 years ago, Emma started dating a guy named Ryan Castellano. She met him at a gallery opening. He was there buying art, she was there studying it. Nice enough kid on the surface, came from money, treated her well at first. He was 24, charming, drove an expensive car and wore expensive clothes. I ran a background check anyway, occupational hazard. Found nothing concerning at first glance. Clean record, no arrests, graduated from Northwestern. Wealthy family involved in import, export, whatever that meant. The Castellano name came up in some society pages, charity galas, that sort of thing. I should have dug deeper. Should have trusted my instincts that said something was off about a 24-year-old with that much money and that little internet presence. But Emma was happy, genuinely happy for the first time since our parents died, and I wanted that for her. 6 months into their relationship, Emma came home with an engagement ring. It was massive. 3 carats, platinum setting, the kind of ring that cost more than most people's cars. She was practically vibrating with excitement when she showed me. Sloane, I know it's fast, but when you know, right? Ryan is wonderful. He loves me. His family wants to meet you, they're so excited I have a sister. They keep saying family is everything to them. I should have been happy. Instead, I felt dread pool in my stomach like ice water. His family wants to meet you, Emma continued, oblivious to my discomfort. Dinner next week at their estate. Sloane, they're wonderful. You're going to love them. I didn't love them. The Castellano family dinner was held at an estate in Lake Forest that screamed old money and newer violence. The house itself was beautiful, Italian architecture, manicured grounds, a fountain in the circular driveway. But there was security everywhere. Cameras. Guards who tried to look like gardeners and staff but moved like soldiers. Ryan's father, Victor Castellano, was charming in that way that made my instincts scream danger. He was probably 60, silver-haired, impeccably dressed in a suit that cost more than my monthly rent. He had the kind of smile that never reached his eyes and a handshake that lasted just a beat too long. His mother, Sophia, was cold. Beautiful in that preserved way that spoke of expensive procedures and personal trainers, but her eyes were calculating as she looked at me. She asked polite questions about my work, but I could tell she was assessing whether I was a threat or an asset. Ryan's 2 brothers were there too. Anthony, the oldest at 30, who barely spoke but watched everything with predator's eyes. And Vincent, 27, who made uncomfortable jokes and drank too much wine. The whole dinner felt like an audition I hadn't agreed to participate in. And then there was the family friend who showed up late. Dominic Caruso. He walked into that dining room like he owned it, which, I would later learn, he essentially did. The Castellanos might own the house, but Dominic owned them. Tall, probably 6'2", dark-haired, wearing a suit that cost more than my car. Early 30s, maybe 34 or 35. But it was his eyes that caught me. Dark, intelligent, and when they landed on me, calculating. Everyone at the table straightened when he entered. Even Victor stood, which he hadn't done for anyone else. Dominic. We weren't expecting you. I heard you were meeting Ryan's fiancée's sister. Thought I'd stop by. His eyes never left me. You must be Sloane Reeves. He crossed the room and extended his hand. I stood to take it. His grip was firm, warm, and he held on just a fraction longer than necessary. Sloane Reeves, he said, and I realized he'd already known my name. I've heard a lot about you. Crisis management consultant. You made the Bradley scandal disappear last year. Senator Bradley, caught with his mistress and a substantial cocaine habit. That had been my work. I'd buried the story, paid off the mistress, and gotten the senator into a very quiet, very expensive rehab facility. The story never broke. I don't discuss my clients, I said carefully. He smiled. Discreet. I admire that. Throughout dinner, I felt his eyes on me. Not in a romantic way. Not even in a predatory way, exactly. In an assessment way. Like he was trying to figure out what I was worth. Like I was a chess piece whose value he was calculating. The dinner conversation was carefully coded. Business discussions that sounded legitimate but had undertones I couldn't quite catch. References to shipments and territory and arrangements that made my skin prickle. Emma, sweet Emma, didn't notice any of it. She just held Ryan's hand and smiled. After dinner, Victor Castellano pulled me aside into his study. Wood-paneled walls, expensive cigars, leather furniture that probably cost more than a year of Emma's tuition. Your sister is lovely, he said, pouring 2 glasses of whiskey. He didn't ask if I wanted one. She'll make a wonderful addition to our family. She's young, I said carefully. Young enough to mold. He smiled, and it didn't reach his eyes. We take care of family, Ms. Reeves. Emma will want for nothing. Beautiful home, unlimited credit, security. And neither will you. Family takes care of family. It sounded like a promise. It felt like a threat. I appreciate that, I said neutrally. You're protective of her. I respect that. I have daughters myself, Anthony's girls. I understand the instinct to protect. He sipped his whiskey. But you don't need to worry anymore. Emma's one of us now. That means she's untouchable. Untouchable, I repeated. No one messes with Castellano family. No one. His eyes hardened. Of course, that also means she represents the family. Her behavior reflects on us. Her choices reflect on us. You understand. I understood perfectly. Emma was being absorbed into something I didn't fully understand yet, but every instinct I had screamed danger. When I left that night, Dominic Caruso was waiting by my car. Ms. Reeves, he said, stepping out of the shadows. I didn't jump, though my heart rate spiked. Mr. Caruso. You don't like them. It wasn't a question. I don't know them. But you don't trust them. I saw it on your face during dinner. You're good at hiding it, but not perfect. He moved closer. You're right not to trust them. Then why are you friends with them? Friends. He laughed. I'm not their friend. I'm their superior. There's a difference. And what does that make you? Powerful. He said it simply, without ego. Just fact. The Castellanos answer to me. Most of Chicago answers to me. I run the largest criminal organization in the Midwest, Ms. Reeves. The legitimate businesses, the illegitimate ones, the politicians, the police, it all flows through me eventually. I should have been terrified. Should have gotten in my car and driven away. But something kept me rooted to the spot. Maybe it was the way he was being honest. Maybe it was the intelligence in his eyes. Maybe it was the certainty that running wouldn't matter anyway. Why are you telling me this? I asked. Because you're going to figure it out anyway. You're too smart not to. And I'd rather you hear it from me than stumble into it and make mistakes. He handed me a business card. Simple, elegant. Just a name and phone number. I'm opening a new division. Corporate consulting, crisis management, making problems disappear. I need someone who knows how to keep secrets. The pay is triple what you make now. I don't work for criminals. He smiled. Everyone works for criminals. They just don't always know it. Half your clients probably have connections to people like me. You just don't ask questions. He tucked the card into my jacket pocket since I hadn't taken it. Think about it. Emma's part of this family now. Wouldn't you rather be close enough to protect her? Because Ms. Reeves, the Castellanos might take care of family, but they also use family. And your sister is very, very valuable to them now. Then he walked away, leaving me with his card and a choice I didn't want to make. I tried to refuse. Tried to keep my distance. I threw the card away. Told myself I could protect Emma from the outside. Kept doing my regular work. But 3 months after Emma's wedding, everything fell apart. The wedding itself had been obscene. 300 guests, most of them looking like extras from a mob movie. Held at the Drake Hotel, no expense spared. Emma looked like a princess in a dress that cost more than some houses. Ryan looked proud. The Castellano family looked satisfied. And Dominic Caruso, standing in the back during the ceremony, looked directly at me the entire time. I'd caught the bouquet. Emma had thrown it directly to me, laughing. When I caught it, Dominic had smiled, and something about that smile made my stomach flip. But I'd ignored him. Ignored the card. Ignored everything except trying to keep my life normal and check on Emma regularly. That's when my career started imploding. It started with my biggest client, a tech CEO I'd been working with for 2 years. He called me into his office and looked uncomfortable. "Sloan, I've really valued our working relationship, but I'm going to have to terminate our contract." "What? Why?" "The product launch scandal, I handled that perfectly. Your stock actually went up. It's not about your performance. It's about pressure. I've been advised by some investors that it would be better for the company if we went in a different direction." "What investors?" He wouldn't say. Just handed me a severance check and wouldn't meet my eyes. 2 more clients followed within a week. Same story. Pressure from investors. Going in a different direction. "It's not you, it's us." Then my bank called. "Ms. Reeves, we've frozen your accounts pending an investigation into suspicious activity." "What suspicious activity?" "Large cash deposits that triggered our anti-money laundering protocols. We're required to report this to federal authorities." "Those were client payments. Legitimate business income. We're sure this will get resolved, but in the meantime, your accounts will remain frozen." I couldn't pay my rent. Couldn't pay Emma's tuition payment that was due. Couldn't buy groceries. Everything I'd built was crumbling, and I knew exactly who was behind it. I found Dominic's card in my trash, smoothed out the wrinkles, and called the number. He picked up on the first ring. I was wondering how long it would take. "You destroyed my career." "No. I redirected it. Your accounts will unfreeze the moment you agree to work for me. Your clients will come back, different ones, but better paying. Your reputation stays intact. You just need to make the right choice. This is blackmail. This is opportunity dressed as necessity. Come work for me, Sloan. Or keep suffering consequences that will only get worse. And if I refuse?" His voice went cold. "Then the problems continue. Maybe Emma starts having problems too. Maybe Ryan gets more aggressive. Maybe the Castellanos decide your sister isn't as valuable as they thought. Wouldn't that be unfortunate?" He was threatening my sister. Rage flooded through me, but I swallowed it. Rage wouldn't help Emma. Strategy would. "When do I start?" "Monday. Welcome to the Caruso family, Sloan." That was 2.5 years ago. Working for Dominic Caruso was like dancing with a shark. Thrilling, dangerous, and one wrong move meant blood in the water. His corporate consulting was crisis management for his criminal empire. Politicians who needed scandals buried, businesses that needed competitors destroyed, evidence that needed to disappear. Witnesses who needed to become unreliable. Prosecutors who needed to find other cases more interesting. I was good at it. Better than good. I was perfect. I understood leverage. I understood fear. I understood how to make problems vanish without leaving traces. Within 3 months, I was handling situations that would have destroyed lesser consultants. A congressman with a gambling problem and debts to the wrong people? I restructured his finances, buried the debt in legitimate loans, and got him on a payment plan that included favorable votes on certain legislation. A judge who'd been photographed with a prostitute? I tracked down every copy of those photos, bought them all, and then helped the judge's wife file for a very quiet divorce with a very generous settlement that included her silence. A business owner who wanted to back out of his protection arrangement? I showed him exactly what would happen to his family if he did. Not threats from Dominic, just facts about other people who'd made similar choices. He paid up. And Dominic noticed. He promoted me within 6 months to senior consultant. Within a year, I was his personal assistant, managing his schedule, sitting in on meetings, coordinating between his legitimate businesses and his criminal operations. By 18 months, I was his right hand. I knew where the bodies were buried, sometimes literally. His previous assistant, a man named Gerald who'd worked for him for a decade, retired very suddenly and very comfortably. Rumor was he'd wanted out after his daughter was born, didn't want her growing up with a father in that world. Dominic had let him go with a generous pension and a house in Florida. The fact that Dominic could be merciful was almost scarier than when he was ruthless. We maintained a perfect professional relationship. He was my boss. I was his employee. We never crossed that line. But there was something between us. A tension. A challenge. Every conversation was a chess game, both of us testing the other's limits. He'd throw me impossible problems to see how I'd solve them. I'd question his decisions to see if he could defend them. We pushed each other, challenged each other, understood each other in a way that was distinctly dangerous. "You're not afraid of me," he said once, late at night in his office as we reviewed documents for a case. We were preparing for a meeting with a federal prosecutor who was getting too close to one of Dominic's operations. Should I be? Most people are. I'm not most people. He smiled, and it was genuine. Not the cold smile he gave enemies. Not the calculated smile he gave business associates. Real. No. You're certainly not. He stood and poured 2 glasses of whiskey from the bar in his office. Handed me one. We developed this ritual: late nights, hard cases, expensive whiskey, and honest conversations. "Why did you really force me into this job?" I asked. It was a question I'd been holding for months. "Because you're brilliant. Because you understand power in a way most people don't. Because you're ruthless when you need to be but not cruel for cruelty's sake." He sat on the edge of his desk, closer than a boss should sit to an employee. "And because I wanted you close. For my skills. Among other things." The air between us felt charged. I should have moved away. Should have maintained professional distance. But I didn't. Dominic. His phone rang. He glanced at it, and something dangerous flashed across his face. "I have to take this." The moment broke. I left his office with my heart pounding for reasons I didn't want to examine. Meanwhile, Emma's marriage was falling apart. It started small. Emma calling me crying because Ryan had stayed out all night without calling. Emma making excuses for why she couldn't meet me for lunch. "Ryan likes me home when he gets back from work." Emma losing weight, losing her spark, losing herself. "He just gets stressed," she said when I confronted her about a bruise on her wrist. "The family business, it's a lot of pressure. He's hurting you." "It's not like that. He just grabbed me too hard during an argument. He didn't mean." "Emma, it's exactly like that." But she wouldn't leave. She loved him, she said. He'd promised to change. He was seeing a therapist. It was getting better. It wasn't getting better. I saw it escalate over months. More bruises. A black eye she tried to cover with makeup. A split lip she blamed on walking into a cabinet. The way she flinched when her phone rang. The way she made herself smaller, quieter, less. The Emma who'd been vibrant and artistic and full of light was disappearing, and Ryan Castellano was killing her piece by piece. I went to Dominic. It was late, after a particularly brutal meeting with a city official who'd needed persuading. I was exhausted and angry and terrified for my sister. "Your associate's son is abusing my sister," I said without preamble, walking into his office and closing the door. He looked up from his computer. "Ryan Castellano." "Yes. And you want me to do what about it?" "Tell Victor to control his son. Or I'll handle it myself." Dominic studied me carefully. "How would you handle it?" "However I have to." Something flickered in his eyes. Approval. Interest. Warning. "Sloan, I understand you're upset." "Upset?" I laughed, and it sounded broken. "I'm past upset. I'm at the point where I'm considering murder and trying to figure out if I can make it look like an accident." "Can you?" The question surprised me. "Probably. Car accident, maybe. Or a bad drug interaction. Ryan uses cocaine, I could lace his supply with fentanyl." "You've thought about this." "I think about everything." I met his eyes. "I need you to fix this. You have power over the Castellanos. Use it. He was quiet for a long moment. Then he stood and came around his desk. I'll talk to Victor. But Sloan, the Castellanos are allies. Important ones. I can pressure, but I can't break them. Not without starting a war that would be costly for everyone. Then start a war. For your sister. For my sister. He reached out and tucked a strand of hair behind my ear. The gesture was tender, unexpected. You really would burn everything down for her, wouldn't you? Without hesitation. That kind of loyalty is rare. Dangerous. His hand lingered on my cheek. But admirable. Will you help me? Yes. But understand, there are limits to what even I can do. Victor values his son. He won't destroy his own bloodline, no matter what I say. Then what good are you? He smiled slightly. I'm good for many things. Let me make some calls. Victor Castellano did nothing. Oh, he made promises. Ryan would get help. They'd handle it internally. Family business stayed family business. But Ryan's abuse got worse. And then Emma got pregnant. She told me over coffee, and she was crying. I can't leave now, she sobbed. The baby, his family, they'll never let me take the baby if I leave. She was right. The Castellanos would fight for that child, and they'd win. They had money, power, connections that went all the way to judges and police. They'd paint Emma as unstable, me as an interfering sister, and they'd take that baby and raise it in their world. I was trapped, and I knew it. That's when I started planning. Not just to get Emma out. To destroy the Castellanos entirely. To burn them down so thoroughly that they couldn't touch my sister or her baby ever again. I needed leverage. Dirt. Evidence of crime serious enough that even their connections couldn't save them. I started digging. Carefully. Quietly. Using my access to Dominic's files, his contacts, his information networks. I pulled financial records, surveillance footage, witness statements. I documented everything, the human trafficking operation Victor ran through his import business, the protection racket Anthony managed on the south side, the illegal gambling and loan sharking Vincent oversaw. I built a case that would bury them. And Dominic noticed. What are you looking for? He asked one night, appearing behind me while I was in his private database. It was 3 a.m., and I'd thought he'd gone home. I didn't jump. Didn't flinch. I'd learned not to show fear around predators. Information. On. The Castellanos. Why? I turned to face him. Because I'm going to destroy them, and I need ammunition. He should have been angry. Should have stopped me. The Castellanos were his allies, his business partners. Destroying them would cause chaos in his organization. Instead, he closed the door and sat down across from me. Tell me your plan. I did. All of it. How I'd leak their financial crimes to the FBI, expose Victor's connections to human trafficking, implicate them so deeply that the entire family would crumble. How I'd use shell companies to buy up their debts. How I'd turn their own soldiers against them by offering better deals. How I'd systematically dismantle everything they'd built. When I finished, Dominic was quiet for a long time. Then, that would destabilize the entire Chicago underworld. Other families would move in. The Italians from New York, the cartels from Mexico, the Russians. It would be chaos. Blood in the streets. I don't care. It would also hurt my business. I have arrangements with the Castellanos. Territories that depend on our alliance. Destabilizing them destabilizes me. I don't care. He laughed. Actually laughed. You're willing to burn down the entire city for one person. Yes. That's either incredibly noble or incredibly selfish. Probably both. He stood, walked to his window overlooking the city. Chicago at night, all lights and movement and life. His city. His kingdom. What if I told you there was another way? A cleaner way that doesn't start a gang war that kills hundreds of people. I'm listening. Marry me. I blinked. Stared at him. Excuse me. He turned to face me. Marry me. Publicly. Make it known that you're under my protection. Once you're a Caruso, the Castellanos can't touch Emma without going through me. And I'm significantly more dangerous than they are. That's insane. That's practical. You want to protect your sister? This protects her. You want leverage over Ryan. Nothing says, don't fuck with me, like being married to Dominic Caruso, the most powerful crime boss in Chicago. He moved toward me. Victor won't risk war with me over Ryan's wife. The baby becomes my niece by marriage. Untouchable. Why would you do this? He stopped in front of me. Close enough that I could see the flecks of gold in his dark eyes. Because you're the most useful person I've ever met. Because you're brilliant and ruthless and you understand this world. Because I don't want to lose you to a war with the Castellanos. He paused. And because I've wanted you since the moment you walked into Victor's dinner party and looked me in the eye without flinching. This is a business arrangement. Of course. What else would it be? But the way he was looking at me said it was anything but business. My heart was pounding. This was insane. Marriage to a mob boss to protect my sister. It sounded like a bad movie. But it would work. God help me, it would work. Emma's safety is guaranteed. Guaranteed. Anyone touches her, they answer to me. And I maintain my independence. This is a paper marriage. Unless you want it to be more. He smiled slightly. But yes. Paper marriage. Separate lives outside the public eye. We'll share an apartment for appearances, but you do what you want, I do what I want. For now. For now. Things change, Sloane. Who knows what we'll want a year from now? I should have said no. Should have run. But Emma was pregnant and being beaten, and I was out of options. And something about Dominic made me feel safe and terrified in equal measure. Fine. But we do this my way. I want a contract. Legal documentation of exactly what this arrangement is. Protection clauses for Emma. Exit strategies. I wouldn't have it any other way. We were married 3 weeks later in a private ceremony. No press. No fanfare. Just paperwork and witnesses and a contract that spelled out exactly what this arrangement was. A business merger disguised as a marriage. But when Dominic kissed me at the end of the ceremony, just for the witnesses, just for show, something inside me shifted. The news hit the underworld like a bomb. Dominic Caruso, the city's most powerful crime boss, had married his assistant. Rumors flew. Was I pregnant? Was this a love match? Was it a business arrangement? Was I actually the daughter of some other crime family? None of it mattered. What mattered was that suddenly, I wasn't just an employee. I was family. Untouchable. And the Castellanos lost their leverage over Emma. Victor called Dominic the day after our wedding. I was in Dominic's office, our office now, when he put the call on speaker. This is quite a surprise, Victor said, his voice carefully neutral. Is it? Dominic leaned back in his chair, completely relaxed. Sloane and I have been working closely for over 2 years. It was a natural progression. Emma's sister. Your new wife. That makes her my daughter-in-law's sister-in-law. It makes her my wife. Which makes Emma family. My family. Dominic's voice went cold. I protect my family, Victor. A long pause. Of course. As do I. Good. Then we understand each other. Emma and her baby are under Caruso protection now. If anything happens to her, anything at all, I'll consider it a direct attack on my family. Ryan would never. Ryan will do exactly what you tell him to do. So tell him to be a good husband and father. Or tell him to sign divorce papers and walk away with his life. But the abuse stops today. Clear. Another pause. Crystal clear. When Dominic hung up, he looked at me. It's done. Just like that. Just like that. Victor understands power. He won't risk everything for Ryan's ego. And if he does, then we burn him down. Together. That night, I called Emma. How are you feeling? Okay. Tired. The pregnancy is making me sick. She paused. Sloane, is it true? You married Dominic Caruso? Yes. Why? You barely talked about him. I did it for you. Silence. Then, quietly, what? You're under protection now. Real protection. Ryan can't hurt you anymore. The Castellanos can't take your baby. You're safe, Em. She started crying. Sloan, what did you do? What I had to. What I'll always do. Whatever it takes to keep you safe. But marriage is just paperwork. I'm fine. Better than fine. I'm exactly where I need to be. And I realized as I said it that it was true. Ryan tried to push back. Tried to assert control. The day after our call, he came home drunk and grabbed Emma's arm hard enough to leave fingerprints. She called me. I called Dominic. Within an hour, Ryan Castellano was in an abandoned warehouse with Dominic and 2 of his men. I went with them. Dominic tried to stop me, but I insisted. This is my fight, I said. Ryan was tied to a chair, bleeding from his nose where someone had hit him. He looked up when we entered, and his eyes went wide with fear when he saw Dominic. Mr. Caruso, I can explain. Shut up. Dominic's voice was cold. He walked around Ryan slowly, like a shark circling prey. You were told to leave Emma alone. You were given a direct order by your father, who was given a direct order by me. And yet here we are. She's my wife. She's my sister-in-law. Which makes her more important than you. Dominic stopped in front of him. You have 2 choices. Choice 1, sign divorce papers, give Emma full custody of the child, leave Chicago, and never contact her again. Choice 2, die here. Tonight. Your body will never be found. Ryan's face went white. My father has already agreed to this conversation. He knows you're here. He knows why. And he knows that if you're too stupid to take the deal, he has other sons. I stepped forward. I've spent 2 years learning how to make people disappear, Ryan. I'm very good at it. I could kill you myself and no one would ever find evidence. No body. No weapon. No witnesses. You'd just be gone. I smiled. But I'm giving you a chance my sister never got. A choice. Take it. Ryan took it. He signed the papers the next day with a shaking hand. Left Chicago within a week. I later heard he'd moved to Portland, working in his uncle's restaurant, using his mother's maiden name. Emma moved into a property I bought under a shell company, a beautiful townhouse in Lincoln Park, far from the Castellano estate and close to me. For the first time in 2 years, she was safe. She flourished. The bruises faded. Her spark came back. Her belly grew with my future niece or nephew, and she glowed with happiness. Thank you, she said one day, holding my hand. I know what you gave up for me. I didn't give up anything. You married a stranger to protect me. He's not a stranger anymore. And he wasn't. My marriage of convenience was becoming complicated in ways I hadn't anticipated. Dominic and I still work together. Still maintain professional distance in the office. But at home, the penthouse we now shared for appearances, the lines blurred. The penthouse was massive. Top floor of his building, floor-to-ceiling windows with views of the lake and the city. Separate master bedrooms on opposite sides of the apartment, as per our agreement. But we had dinner together most nights. Talked about our days. Argued about cases and strategies. Laughed at inside jokes that no one else would understand. You don't have to stay in the guest room, he said one night about a month into our arrangement. I was in pajamas, heading to bed after a long day. The arrangement was separate bedrooms. The arrangement was whatever we wanted to be. He poured 2 glasses of wine from the bottle we'd opened with dinner, handed me one. We're married, Sloan. We can make this real if we want. Do you want that? I want you to trust me. I don't trust anyone. I know. It's one of the things I love about you. He said it casually, like commenting on the weather. Not a confession. Just a fact. Love. Dominic. You don't have to say it back. I know what this is. I know what it started as. But I also know what it could be, if you'd let it. He set down his wine, moved closer. You're brilliant. You're ruthless. You challenge me. You're the only person I've met who doesn't fear me, and that's intoxicating. I'm in love with you, Sloan. I have been since you threatened to murder Ryan Castellano yourself. That's a weird thing to fall in love over. He smiled. I'm a weird guy. I should have shut him down. Should have reminded him this was business. But standing there in our shared space, seeing the honesty in his eyes, I couldn't. I don't know how to do this, I said quietly. I don't know how to let someone in. Every time I've loved someone, they've either died or needed saving. Love feels like weakness. Then don't think of it as love yet. Think of it as partnership. We work well together. We understand each other. We're building something. He reached up, cupped my face gently. Let me in, Sloane. Even just a little. What if I hurt you? What if you don't? I didn't answer. Just set down my wine, went to my room, and closed the door. But I thought about his words all night. I kept him at arm's length for months. Professional. Cordial. Married but separate. We worked together seamlessly, and at home we were like roommates who happened to like each other. But the tension built. The way his hand would linger on my back when we walked into events together. The way I'd catch him watching me with something hungry in his eyes. The way we'd stay up late talking about everything and nothing, getting closer without ever crossing that final line. Then came the Christmas party. It was 18 months into our arrangement. The company holiday party was at Dominic's downtown tower, in the massive event space on the 40th floor. Everyone who was anyone in Chicago's criminal underworld was there, along with politicians, business owners, and society figures who had no idea they were rubbing elbows with the mob. A strange mix of legitimate business and obvious crime, all pretending to be respectable. I wore red. A dress I'd bought specifically for this, silk, elegant, with a neckline that was professional but hinted at something more. Dominic wore black, as always. A suit that probably cost $10,000 and made him look like sin incarnate. We looked like a matched set, the king and queen of this dangerous kingdom. His hand stayed on my lower back all night, possessive and warm. We moved through the crowd together, and I noticed how people watched us. How they whispered. How they looked at us like we were exactly what we were pretending to be, a powerful couple who belonged together. Maybe we weren't pretending anymore. You look beautiful, Dominic murmured in my ear during a quiet moment. Have I told you that tonight? 3 times. Not enough, then. He pulled me closer, and we swayed to the music even though we weren't on the dance floor. Dance with me. Here. Anywhere. Always. Something in my chest cracked open. This man. This dangerous, powerful, ruthless man was looking at me like I hung the moon. And I was tired of fighting it. Dominic. Sloane Reeves Caruso. The voice came from behind me, and I froze. I knew that voice. I turned, and there he was. Ethan Pierce. My ex from college. The one who got away, or so I'd thought at the time back when I was young and stupid and believed in fairy tales. Ethan. I stepped out of Dominic's arms, shock washing over me. What are you doing here? I'm consulting for Caruso Industries. New account manager for the West Coast expansion. His smile was warm, familiar. Handsome in that boy-next-door way that was so different from Dominic's dark elegance. I heard you got married. Congratulations. I felt Dominic's presence behind me like a wall of heat and danger. Ethan Pierce, I said carefully, this is my husband, Dominic Caruso. Dominic, this is Ethan. We went to college together. Columbia, right? Ethan extended his hand. Mr. Caruso, it's an honor. Your company's expansion strategy is brilliant. Dominic shook his hand, but his grip looked punishing. Pierce. Sloane's mentioned you. I hadn't. Not once. But Ethan didn't know that. All good things, I hope, Ethan laughed. She doesn't talk about her past much. Dominic's voice was cold. She's more focused on her future. The tension was thick enough to cut. I jumped in. How long have you been in Chicago? Just a few weeks. I moved from New York, better opportunity here. I had no idea you worked for the company until I saw your name on the org chart. He smiled that familiar smile. It's so good to see you, Sloane. You look amazing. Marriage clearly agrees with you. We talked. Caught up on the last 8 years. He'd worked in finance in New York, recently divorced, no kids. He was funny, warm, familiar in a way that reminded me of simpler times. Before I understood how dark the world really was. Before I became someone who knew how to make bodies disappear. Dominic excused himself after a few minutes, saying he needed to talk to some investors. But I felt his eyes on me from across the room. Watching. Assessing. He's intense, Ethan said when Dominic was gone. Your husband. He's protective. Seems more than protective. Seems possessive. Ethan touched my arm lightly. Are you happy, Sloane? Really happy? Yes, I said, and realized I meant it. I really am. Good. You deserve that. He smiled. I always regretted how things ended between us. Moving to New York right after graduation, I should have asked you to come with me. We were kids. It wouldn't have worked. Maybe. Or maybe we gave up too easy. He looked at me with something soft in his eyes. It's good to see you again. Maybe we could grab coffee sometime. Catch up properly. Maybe, I said noncommittally. The party continued. Champagne flowed. At midnight, when everyone was celebrating and counting down, Ethan was nearby. The countdown finished, everyone cheered, and in the chaos of people kissing and celebrating, Ethan leaned in and kissed me. It was brief. Friendly. Nothing more than a nostalgic gesture between old friends who'd once meant something to each other. His lips were soft, familiar, and wrong. Because they weren't Dominic's. I pulled away quickly. Ethan. Sorry, that was probably inappropriate given you're married. It's fine, I said, but my eyes were already searching the crowd for Dominic. I found him across the room. He'd seen. Of course he'd seen. He was standing perfectly still, frozen mid-conversation, staring at me with an expression I'd never seen before. Rage. Betrayal. Possession. Murder. Our eyes locked across the crowded room, and I saw the exact moment something snapped inside him. He turned and walked out of the party without a word. Your husband okay? Ethan asked, oblivious. I need to go. I left him standing there and went after Dominic. I found him in his office. Our office. He was standing by the window, looking out at the city, his hands clenched into fists so tight his knuckles were white. Dominic. Don't. His voice was cold. Dead. Don't say anything right now. I closed the door behind me. It was just. I don't want to hear it. He turned to face me, and the look in his eyes made my breath catch. Who is he? Really? College boyfriend. We dated for 2 years. It ended when he moved to New York after graduation. I haven't seen him in 8 years. You kissed him. He kissed me. And it didn't mean anything. You're my wife. On paper. I don't care if it's on paper or written in blood, Sloane. You're mine. That means no other man touches you. Ever. His voice was rising, losing that careful control he always maintained. I've watched you for 2 years. Wanted you. Married you. Given you everything. You blackmailed me into this marriage. To protect your sister. Because you needed help and were too proud to ask for it. He moved toward me, and I'd never seen him lose control like this. I've been patient. I've given you space. I've waited for you to trust me, to let me in, to see that this could be real. And the first time some pretty boy from your past shows up, you kiss him. I didn't kiss him. Semantics. He was close now, in my space, vibrating with rage. You let him touch you. You let him put his mouth on yours. You're my wife, Sloane. Mine. You don't own me. Don't I? He grabbed my arms, not hard enough to hurt, but firm enough to make his point. I own this city. I own the people in it. I sure as hell own you. I should have been angry. Should have pulled away. But looking at him, seeing the raw emotion, the jealousy, the possessiveness, I felt something inside me break open. Then act like it, I whispered. He stared at me. What? If I'm yours, prove it. Stop being patient. Stop giving me space. Stop waiting. I met his eyes. Claim me, Dominic. For real this time. Something fierce and dark flashed across his face. You don't know what you're asking for. I know exactly what I'm asking for. I grabbed his tie, pulled him closer. I'm asking for you to stop treating me like I'm breakable. I'm asking for the truth of what this is. What we are. And what are we? I don't know yet. But I'm tired of pretending it's just business. I took a shaky breath. I'm terrified. I don't know how to do this. Every instinct I have says trusting you is dangerous, that loving you is weakness. You love me. His voice was barely a whisper. I hadn't meant to say it. But now that I had, I couldn't take it back. Yes. God help me, yes. I love you. I've loved you for months and I've been fighting it because I don't know how to be vulnerable. But seeing you look at me like that, like I betrayed you, I can't do this halfway anymore. He kissed me. Not the gentle kiss from our wedding. Not the polite kiss for show at public events. This was possession and promise and 18 months of denied want. His hands were in my hair, my back was against his desk, and I was kissing him back with everything I had. When we finally broke apart, both of us breathing hard, he pressed his forehead to mine. Ethan Pierce is gone. What? I already called it in. He's on a plane to Singapore in 3 hours with a new job, triple salary, and explicit instructions never to return to the United States. My blood should have run cold. I should have been horrified. But instead, I laughed. You made that call while I was following you up here. The moment I saw him kiss you. His hands cupped my face. That's what happens when someone touches what's mine. That's who I am. Still want to do this. I looked at this dangerous, powerful, possessive man who'd just made someone vanish because of a 5-second kiss. Who'd blackmailed me into working for him, married me to protect my sister, and was now looking at me like I was the only thing in the world that mattered. Yes, I said. I still want this. I want you. No more separate bedrooms. No more separate bedrooms. No more pretending this is just business. No more pretending. You're mine, Sloane. Completely. And I'm yours. That's the deal. That's the deal. He kissed me again, softer this time. I love you. I'm in love with you. I have been since you walked into Victor Castellano's dinner and looked at me like you could see exactly what I was and weren't impressed. I'm impressed now. Liar. You're still not impressed. You just love me anyway. He smiled against my lips. That's why you're perfect. We left the party early. Went home to our penthouse. And this time, I didn't go to my room. I went to his. Our marriage became real that night. In every way that mattered. The next morning, I woke up in Dominic's bed, his arm around me, sunlight streaming through the windows. For the first time in years, I felt safe. Completely, utterly safe. He was awake, watching me. Morning. Morning. I touched his face, still amazed that I was allowed to do this now. No regrets. About making Ethan disappear or about last night? Both. None whatsoever. He pulled me closer. You're stuck with me now. Good. We stayed in bed for hours, talking about everything. Our pasts, our fears, our plans. He told me about his father, how he'd taken over the family business at 25 when his father died of a heart attack. How he'd had to prove himself to men who thought he was too young, too soft. How he'd become ruthless because it was the only way to survive. I told him about my parents, the phone call that destroyed my world, raising Emma alone while trying to figure out my own life. How I'd become hard because I had to be. We're both survivors, he said. That's why this works. Is it always going to be like this? Dangerous? People trying to destroy us? Probably. But we'll destroy them first. He kissed my forehead. Together. For 3 months, we lived in a bubble of happiness. I moved my things into his room. We stopped pretending at work, everyone knew we were really married now, really together. Emma was thriving, her pregnancy progressing beautifully. The Castellanos kept their distance. Everything was perfect. Too perfect. I should have known it wouldn't last. The FBI came on a Tuesday morning. I was making coffee in our penthouse kitchen, wearing one of Dominic's shirts and nothing else, when the door burst open. FBI. Hands where we can see them. There were agents everywhere. Guns drawn. Shouting. I put my hands up, coffee mug still in my hand, and watched as they swarmed through our home. Sloane Reeves Caruso, you're under arrest for conspiracy to commit murder, racketeering, money laundering, and obstruction of justice. They had evidence. Emails I'd sent. Transactions I'd authorized. Conversations I'd had. All carefully documented over months of surveillance. Dominic was arrested an hour later at his office. They did it publicly, walked him out in handcuffs in front of everyone. The news cameras were already there. Someone had tipped them off. We were separated. Held in different facilities. I didn't see him for 3 days. When I finally did, it was in a federal courtroom. We sat at separate tables with our lawyers, and I saw the strain on his face. The carefully controlled rage. The fear, not for himself, but for me. The prosecutor was a woman named Sarah Chin, early 40s, impeccable suit, and eyes like a shark. She laid out their case with brutal efficiency. The Caruso criminal enterprise has operated with impunity for decades, she said. But that ends today. We have years of evidence. Financial records showing money laundering through legitimate businesses. Communications coordinating criminal activity. Witness testimony. And most damning of all, we have recordings. She played them. Conversations between Dominic and his associates. Plans being made. Problems being solved. And my voice, clear and unmistakable, coordinating it all. Ms. Reeves Caruso isn't just the mob boss's wife, Chin continued. She's his partner. His strategist. The architect of numerous criminal conspiracies. She's just as guilty as he is. My lawyer, a sharp woman named Patricia Morrison, tried to argue. My client was coerced into this position. She was blackmailed. She was promoted repeatedly, Chin interrupted. Given more responsibility, more power. She wasn't a victim. She was a willing participant who profited enormously from criminal activity. It went on for hours. Evidence after evidence. Testimony after testimony. They had everything. During a brief recess, I managed to get close enough to Dominic to whisper, they really did their homework. It's Ethan, he said quietly. Has to be. This started 3 months ago. Right after I sent him away. He wasn't just an account manager. No. He was FBI. Deep cover. The kiss was his way of maintaining contact, probably had a wire. Dominic's jaw clenched. He used your past against you. Against us. What do we do? I don't know yet. But Sloan, he grabbed my hand quickly before the guards separated us. Whatever happens, we survive this. Together. Together, I promised. That night, from my cell, I stared at the ceiling and thought. Really thought. About evidence. About timing. About how the FBI built their case. And I realized something. I made a call. To someone I'd cultivated specifically for a moment like this. Federal Judge Catherine Walsh. I'd buried a scandal for her son 2 years ago, drug charges that would have destroyed her family and her career. At the time, I'd done it because Dominic asked me to. Judge Walsh had been ruling favorably in some of his cases, and keeping her son out of prison ensured she stayed cooperative. Now, I needed to call in that debt. Judge Walsh, this is Sloan Reeves Caruso. Silence. Then, you shouldn't be calling me. I need you to review the Caruso case. Personally. Look at how the evidence was obtained. The surveillance, the recordings, the timeline. I can't interfere with. Yes, you can. Because if you don't, that file I've been keeping about your son's drug dealer, the one that connects back to you approving his probation violation dismissal in exchange for your son's charges being dropped, that file goes public. Along with the bank records showing a payment from you to the dealer's lawyer. I was bluffing about some of it. But she didn't know that. Long silence. You're blackmailing a federal judge. I'm calling in a debt. There's a difference. I helped your family. Now help mine. If I do this, we're even. I don't owe you anything else. Deal. She reviewed the case. And she found exactly what I suspected she'd find. Ethan Pierce had been operating under a false identity when he infiltrated Caruso Industries. He'd obtained evidence through illegal surveillance, wiretaps that hadn't been properly authorized. He'd falsified some of the timeline to make his case stronger, creating evidence that seemed to show criminal activity happening when it actually hadn't. And he'd violated several procedures about maintaining his cover identity, technically making him an unreliable witness. Judge Walsh called it out. Publicly. The illegal surveillance, the falsified records, the procedural violations. She threw out half the evidence and demanded the FBI provide proof that the remaining evidence was obtained legally. The prosecutor scrambled. Tried to rebuild the case. But without the illegally obtained evidence, they had nothing concrete. Just circumstantial connections and suspicions. Not enough to convict beyond a reasonable doubt. 6 weeks after our arrest, Dominic and I were released. The charges weren't dismissed entirely. They couldn't dismiss them without admitting how badly they'd screwed up, but they were reduced to minor offenses that would likely be pleaded down to fines. We stood on the courthouse steps, blinking in the sunlight, surrounded by press and lawyers and cameras. Dominic took my hand. "You saved us. I told you to trust me. You blackmailed a federal judge. I called in a favor. There's a difference." I squeezed his hand. "Now we're even. I blackmailed you into giving me a job. You blackmailed me into taking it. I blackmailed a judge to save us. We're a perfect match." He laughed and then pulled me into a kiss in front of all the cameras. When we broke apart, he whispered, "You magnificent, terrifying woman. I am so completely in love with you." Good. Because we're in this together now. For real. No going back. No going back. But the FBI wasn't done. Neither were we. Ethan Pierce had disappeared into witness protection, but Dominic's people were hunting him. It took 4 months, but they found him. Living in a small town in Montana under a new name, working as an accountant. Dominic told me about it over dinner. My people found Pierce. I set down my fork. And I need to know what you want me to do about it. What are my options? He disappears. Permanently. Or he stays in his little Montana town, and we let him rot there knowing he failed. I thought about it. About Ethan using our past against me. About him putting Dominic in jail. About the 6 weeks of hell we'd endured because of his investigation. Let him live, I said finally. But make sure he knows we could have killed him and chose not to. Make sure he spends the rest of his life looking over his shoulder. Dominic smiled. That's crueler than killing him. I know. One of Dominic's men visited Ethan. Sat down with him in his new apartment. Explained exactly how easily they'd found him, how easily they could make him disappear. Then left without touching him. Ethan lived. But from what I heard, he never felt safe again. Every knock on his door. Every car that followed him too long. He existed in constant fear, and that was punishment enough. 3 months after our release, Emma went into labor. It was early. 2 weeks before her due date. I got the call at work and rushed to the hospital with Dominic. Emma was in labor for 14 hours. Long, difficult, scary. And during the delivery, something went horribly wrong. She hemorrhaged. Badly. The doctors couldn't stop the bleeding fast enough. They had to make a choice, save Emma or save the baby. Emma chose the baby. Take care of her, she whispered to me, her hand weak in mine. Take care of Hope. Emma, no. Promise me. I promise. I promise, but you're going to be fine. She wasn't fine. She died 20 minutes after giving birth to a daughter she named Hope. My sister. My best friend. The person I'd done all of this for. Dead from something I couldn't control, couldn't manipulate, couldn't fix with strategy or leverage or money. The grief nearly destroyed me. I held Hope in my arms, this tiny, perfect, innocent thing, and felt something inside me shatter. I'd spent years protecting Emma. Maneuvering to keep her safe. Marrying Dominic to give her security. And in the end, I couldn't save her from biology. From chance. From fate. The funeral was small. Just me, Dominic, a few friends. The Castellanos didn't show up. Victor sent flowers with a card that read, "Condolences." Ryan didn't even do that. I stood at her grave with Hope in my arms and Dominic's hand on my shoulder, and I made a promise. Emma might be gone, but I would protect her daughter. Always. No matter what it cost. That's when Dominic did something that changed everything. We were back at the penthouse. Hope was sleeping in a bassinet we'd bought. I was sitting in the nursery we'd set up, watching her breathe, terrified she'd stop. Dominic came in and knelt beside my chair. I contacted my lawyer. For what? To start adoption proceedings. For Hope. He took my hand. I want to adopt her. Legally. Make her our daughter. Give her my name and my protection. I stared at him. Why? Because she's yours, which means she's mine. Because Emma was family, and this is how we honor her. Because this little girl deserves parents who will protect her with everything they have. He squeezed my hand. Let me do this. Let me be her father. Tears streamed down my face. You don't have to. I want to. Sloane, I know you think love is weakness. But look at what you did for Emma. The empire you infiltrated, the marriage you accepted, the risks you took. That wasn't weakness. That was the strongest thing I've ever seen. He reached up, wiped my tears. Let me be that strong for you. For Hope. For us. She's not your blood. Neither were you when I fell in love with you. Blood doesn't make family. Choice does. And I choose her. I choose you. I choose us. So we became parents. Not the way either of us expected. But in the way that mattered. The adoption was finalized 3 months later. Hope Castellano became Hope Caruso. And Ryan, that pathetic excuse for a father, signed away all his parental rights without a fight. The Castellanos wanted nothing to do with her now that Emma was gone and I had Dominic's protection. Their loss. Our gain. Hope grew up surrounded by danger and protection in equal measure. The goddaughter of crime bosses. The heir to an empire built on blood and strategy. But also surrounded by love. So much love. She had my determination and Emma's artistic soul and Dominic's strategic mind. By the time she was 3, she was already smart as a whip. By 5, she was terrifyingly perceptive. And that's when everything came full circle. We were at dinner, just the 3 of us, rare quiet family time, when Hope looked up from her pasta and said, "Mommy, why did your friend have to die?" I froze, fork halfway to my mouth. What friend, sweetheart? The man from the party. The one who kissed you. Daddy said he went away, but I heard Uncle Giovanni say he was dead. My blood went cold. Giovanni was one of Dominic's top men. He must have been talking about Ethan, not knowing Hope was listening. "Hope, sweetie, go wash your hands for dessert," I said, keeping my voice calm. When she skipped off to the bathroom, I turned to Dominic. "Ethan Pierce is dead." His expression was carefully neutral. "Has been for 3 years. You said you sent him to Montana. You said we were letting him live. I did let him live. For a while. He met my eyes. He lasted 6 months before he violated the agreement. Started trying to contact you again. Wrote you letters, tried to warn you about me, started gathering evidence for another case. You never told me. My people intercepted everything. And then they intercepted him." He reached across the table, took my hand. "He was a threat to you. To us. To everything we'd built. And he wouldn't stop. So I made sure he couldn't hurt us anymore. You killed him. I had him killed. There's a difference. I should have been horrified. Should have recoiled. But instead, I thought about Emma. About Hope. About the empire we'd built on ruthless decisions and bloody hands. About the fact that Ethan Pierce had been willing to destroy us because he thought I needed saving. The letters, I said quietly. What did they say? That I was dangerous. That you needed to leave me. That he could help you disappear, start over, be free. That I was manipulating you, controlling you, that you were a victim who didn't know any better. Dominic's grip tightened on my hand. He thought he was saving you from a monster. He didn't realize you'd become one too.